Sports Hour with Ace. I'm your host, Andrew Vanelli. Today's show is presented by my new sponsor, High Point Pizza. I hope everyone's having a good Wednesday morning. High Point Pizza is the new sponsor, 477 High Point Terrace. It's parallel to Highland and Graham. It's between Walnut Grove and Summer. Open Tuesday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Closed on Mondays. Sunday, it's also open 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. You can dine in or take out. Call 901-452-3339 or visit them online, www.highpointpizza901.com. That's www.highpointpizza901.com. High Point Pizza just celebrated 10 years in business, so go enjoy one of the best muffalettas in the city, or a slice and a salad at lunch or dinner time. You can get one of the best handmade pizzas in Memphis, as well as an excellent selection of domestic and imported, as well as local bottled beer. High Point Pizza, 477 High Point Terrace. You can call them, 452-3339, and get a little takeout, or go dine in, 477 High Point Terrace. I'm joined today with Josh Midget on the ones and twos. What's going on, Josh?
Doing good, man. Doing good on a Wednesday.
A wet Wednesday, man. It was not fun driving in here this morning. It's been like that 2 days in a row now, but I made it sure enough. I got a little bit different show today. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I know we're early in the season, just 2 weeks in, or I guess you want to call it, 2.5, 3 weeks in, because they called those first few days of college football week 0. Did you notice that?
Really?
Yeah, they were calling it week 0. I think, I had a few games. Colorado State played Oregon State. Stanford played Rice in Sydney, Australia. But they were calling it week 0. The official week 1 was considered to be the weekend prior to Labor Day, I believe. So those, I guess it was, I think it was August 28th through August 30th kickoffs. They were calling it week 0. And then week 1 was kind of like the Florida-Michigan that week, and then last week was week 2. But really, technically, there's been almost 3 weeks of football. So I'm going to touch a little bit about on my top 5 disappointing teams to start out the season. We'll talk a little bit about, I saw that the Grizzlies, Tony Allen, is now a New Orleans Pelican, which, so Zebo's gone, Tony Allen's gone. The grindfather, man, he is no longer in Memphis. I'm happy for him. He's kind of going on the tail end of his career. I don't know what drew him to New Orleans, but that's where he's at. I'm definitely going to root for him. I hate to see him go. I hated to see Zebo go. But we just got to work with what we've got. My expectations are not very high for the Grizzlies next year. I know we've got Mike back. I know we've got Mark back, but I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. Have you heard anything more on the JaMychal Green situation?
That's an interesting thing. The last I heard, it might have been late last week, was with JaMychal that basically the Grizz still talking to him, trying to get something done.
Yeah.
It's been a weird situation, man. You wonder why it takes so long. Well, one, I guess nobody offered anything.
Right.
Being restricted.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of slowed the whole process down. So now training camp's right around the corner, so they got to get something done.
Right.
Real quick.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they have to get somebody in there next to Mark, man. That's the main thing. Do I wish it was JaMychal Green, someone better than JaMychal Green? Of course, at the end of the day, you got to get a body. Brandon Wright's not the answer. He's just not. He is a role player.
Yeah.
He's not a starting power forward in the NBA. Never has, never will be. Although coming out of college, I did have high expectations for him. I thought that he was going to be good. He's a tweener, man. He's kind of like a Stromile Swift.
Yeah.
He's 6'9". He's kind of frail. He has put on a little weight since college, but he's just a tweener, man. He's really athletic, but it's hard for him to guard to guard a four, a true four, and then his scoring is just not. He can't really step out and stretch the defense out.
Yeah.
So it makes the defense a little easy for him. But I mean, we need a body. We need bodies, basically. We're gonna miss that scoring that Zebo provided down there. There's no doubt about it. Mark's gonna have to really pick up even more of the load, which is kind of crazy to say considering what he has done so far in his career. But, they're not getting any younger, man. The group that they kept intact for so long, which was very impressive, how long they kept the core intact, is slowly starting to break away. And now it's time to, I don't want to call next year a rebuilding year. I think there's enough talent, on the team with Conley and Gasol to build around to maybe get a 7th or 8th spot. But that's it after that. That's it after that. It's going to, you play San Antonio, Oklahoma City first round, and, probably bring out the broomsticks on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not what you want.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, man. Guys like Tyreek and McLemore.
Yeah, I am excited about that. I was really, really, really high on Tyreek Evans when he left Memphis. When we took Hasheem to beat number 2 in that draft, I was like, wow, we could have had Tyreek Evans, man, And I think Tyreek ended up going 5th to Sacramento. Or no, he went 3rd. Steph Curry went 5th.
Yeah, that's right.
Steph Curry could have been a Grizzly, man. Hindsight.
That draft, I think James Harden's in that draft.
He was. There was a ton of talent, man. And the Grizzlies got 7'3" Hasheem to beat out of Georgetown, who was just absolutely off. I'll never understand some of our draft edits because I like Chris Wallace. He knows how to scout. He works hard. He's a great guy. I think that somebody has been overriding those decisions when it comes down to the room when they're in the room. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have a hard time. Like I said, hindsight's 20/20. But I would have a hard time. If I had an opportunity to look Chris Wallace in the eye and say, "Hey, man, that draft when you took Hasheem to beat number 2, and James Harden, Tyreek Evans, Steph Curry." There's some other names that I could probably name. I just can't think off the top of my head because I was, I don't know, 7 years ago. But after the performance Tyreek had at Memphis, after the performance Steph Curry had at Davidson, bringing a team like Davidson, wasn't it back-to-back Final Fours?
Yeah, he was literally the only guy on that team.
And you take Hasheem to beat, man. I knew that was going to be a bust. I caught when me and my buddies, I'll never forget, we were all watching the game over at my house. I was living with the roommate at the time, and I knew it. I knew that's who we were going to pick. I knew it. That's who my buddies wanted to take. And man, when we took him, I called it Hasheem to bust. Period. I don't. You can try and argue that the pick's good. Within 1 year, I will get the last laugh. And sure enough, man, that guy, man.
I think the telling sign of that, and I know this is going back in time a little bit, but the telling sign to me was, I'm sure you remember this, was the DeJuan Blair game when they played Pitt with the beat and he got flipped.
Yeah.
He flipped the beat over his.
Yeah, I remember.
So I'm like, no.
And DeJuan Blair was what, 6'6"?
Yeah.
And they played each other. When he was at Pitt, they played each other 3 or 4 times a year, and he dominated to beat.
Yeah.
And the guy was 6'6", 6'7", dominated him. And we take him with the number 2 pick overall. Could have had Steph Curry at least for 4 years. Could have had Tyreek Evans. Now we do. That's cool. He will provide some scoring. We still don't have a shooter. Well, you know what? What's his name?
Troy's still there.
Yeah, and what's the guy that missed most of last season that we're paying all that money? Why? Yeah, there you go. Chandler Parsons. That's right. Hopefully he'll recover. He can shoot. The Grizzlies, it seems like they've always had trouble finding a shooter. I mean, we've had Mike Miller, we had OJ, Rudy could shoot a little bit, but I'm talking about that. That just pure. When you have a guy like Conley that can kind of break a defense down, get in the lane, and then kick it out. You want to have that guy that can spot up and just shoot the ball, man. And it seems that the Grizzlies have always struggled to find that guy. Anyways, this football season, though, we're not going to talk too much basketball. Good luck to TA, man. I love Tony Allen. He worked, he's the prime example of what this city stands for. He brought the grit and the grind to Memphis. And, he was a perfect fit for the city and for the Memphis Grizzlies, and we appreciate him. So I definitely wanted to give him a shout out. Call in 901-452-3094. 452-3094. We're going to talk a little more college football, a little college football, a little NFL. I'm about to do my top 5. I know we're just 2 weeks in, or 2.5 weeks in. I'm going to do my top 5 most disappointing teams so far this year. And it's interesting, Josh, because 3 of those top 5 are in the SEC.
Really?
3 of those 5 are in the SEC, and I did on YouTube and on Facebook Live, I did an SE East preview show before the season kicked off, and I did a SEC East and SEC West preview show that I did on Facebook Live. I believe I did it on Periscope, and then I uploaded them. They're on YouTube. You can go see them now. Be sure to subscribe. It's I believe it's Andrew Ace Vanelli, or it's the Andy and Mandy Show, which is my fiance Amanda Phelps. That's why it's called the Andy and Mandy Show. Go there, subscribe. You can catch the preview shows. But I had Texas A&M finishing dead last in the West, 5-7, 1-7. That looks like it'll hold true. I had Missouri finishing dead last, 5-7, 1-7. Looks like they might end up worse than that in the East. And then I had Arkansas, I believe, finishing either 5th or 6th. I can't remember. I had them in Mississippi State in the West. I put Ole Miss up to 4. Everybody had Ole Miss sitting at 7 or 6 in most of the prognostications that I saw. All the experts had Ole Miss at the 7th spot. Some had them at the 6th spot. I put them up at number 4 because I believe there's still talent there. I like Shea Patterson. I like Matt Luke. I believe the kids will have a chip on their shoulder. Matt Luke said that the best player is going to play. He's going to be one of those things where, you might be more talented, but if there's a kid that's going to play harder every play, they're going to see the field, and I like that. I like that approach. They started the season 2-0. They go to Cal this week. Big game for Ole Miss on the road at Cal. They're actually a 3-point favorite. I think they'll go to Cal and beat them and be 3-0. But back to the top 5, I've got 3 of those top 5, and 2 of them are teams that I finished to pick dead last on each side of the conference. Number 1, most disappointing team, Texas A&M. Kevin Sumlin, the head coach, I believe he might not finish the year. I don't know. We'll find out. What happens. But it's kind of like it's in reverse. Normally, what's happened since someone's been there, they start out quick and then they fade late. Man, they're just off to a bad start this year. That they came out, jumped out on UCLA up 34 points, gave that game away. Then they, right out of the gate, a disappointing loss. And then after, the 34-point lead, they play Nicholls State and they barely beat them. So they're sitting at 1-1, but when you struggle, when you give up a 34-point lead late and then you struggle against Nicholls State, you are definitely the most disappointing team in the NCAA thus far. Number 2, I've got Arkansas, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Brett Bielema, it's just showing, he gets, he goes with size. In the SEC, you need speed. They've always got a good backfield, but they just seem like they always have trouble throwing the ball and getting things going on offense. Last week, at home, TCU manhandled them 28-7, and the local Hog fans are kind of calling for his head. I believe, man, they're ready for him to go.
I think so. Look, I've heard from some Hog fans, that social media and seeing some, they're sick at this point.
Right. Yeah. And this has happened in the past. In 2015. I think in week 3 or week 4 they were kind of calling for Bielema's head, and then they won, I think, 5 of the last 6 or something like that. So he kind of saved himself, finishing like 8-5, I believe, or 9-4. I don't remember exactly.
I think that was breaking out.
Yeah, I believe you're right. And those running backs, he had that really good tandem in the backfield. So Arkansas comes in number 2. And then number 3, I've got the North Carolina Tar Heels. Man, are disappointing to me. They lost their opener, which they lost to Cal, if I'm not mistaken, in their opener, which is a really big eye opener to me because I think I have Cal finishing in the bottom half of the Pac-12, or like right around the middle to the bottom half of the Pac-12. I believe it was at home, and then Louisville comes in. They're looking good. They have a 1-point lead, I believe in the 4th quarter, and then Louisville scores 19 unanswered, and so UNC starts out 0-2, and it's not going to get too much easier for them. The disappointing thing that there was high expectations for that quarterback, and I just don't see where they're coming from on defense. He's good. He's got talent. He's got a ways to go. He's big. He's a big guy. He's got some talent, but he's got a ways to go. The disappointing thing has been their defense, which has almost given up 1,200 yards in their 2 losses. So North Carolina comes in number 3 as my third most disappointing team starting off the season. Number 4, I have Missouri. I've got Missouri in at number 4 as my most disappointing team. Barry Odom, head coach, expected to be a defensive-minded type of team. They struggle on defense. Missouri State put 43 points on them. Their running back, I believe, averaged 11.2 yards per carry. We're talking about a Missouri State team that a couple years ago the University of Memphis beat, I think, by almost 60. They won the game 72-43. And then last week, South Carolina came, to a place that's hard to go and win. Missouri is not an easy place to go win, especially at night. South Carolina came in as 2.5-point underdogs. It was a 5-unit play for me. I handicapped. For those that don't know, I have a handicapping service. They were a 5-unit play. It's very rare that I have 5-unit plays. There's been seasons where I only have 6 or 7 5-unit plays. We had 2 last week. South Carolina plus the 2.5. They covered. They beat Missouri on the road 31-13. So after and what I perceive as a disappointing performance opening the year against Missouri State, although they won 72-43, they gave up 43 points to a team like Missouri State who ran all over them. Their running back was actually leading the country in rushing, I believe, with 11.2 yards per carry. And I think that it is just going to get more tough. Missouri will win their non-conference, the rest of their non-conference games, I believe. And SEC, they might not. I picked them 1-7, 7th in the East. I don't think they'll get a win. I had them winning on Senior Day, and last night I took a look at it. I think that game's Tennessee. And after what I've seen, I don't think they'll beat Tennessee. So don't be surprised if Missouri goes 4-8, 3-9, 4-8. So they come in number 4, and then I've got a tie at number 5. I've got Temple, and I've got BYU. Matt Rule left and went to Baylor, the guy that turned Temple around. And look at Baylor now. They are a 14-point underdog this week. I don't remember who they're playing, but I was shocked to see that they're in 14-point underdog. But Jeff Collins steps in for Matt Rule. They've had back-to-back 10-win seasons. Very respectable on defense. They go to Notre Dame, open the year. Notre Dame hangs 49 points on them. Wimbush runs for, I think, 106 yards on 12 attempts. Our backfield, they hand the ball off about 30-plus times. I think Kelly's his game plan was to not show. Why is my mind slipping me now? Georgia, too much. I think he was trying to keep it as plain as possible, not show too many wrinkles. And it's very disappointing performance from Temple. And then they played Villanova last weekend, and they escaped 16-13. So after 2 10-win seasons, man, they get beat. Granted it was South Bend. Notre Dame was 4-8 last year. I don't know what to expect this year. They look much better. They look like they've improved, but it's still a little too early to tell. And then they go home and they beat Villanova by a field goal. So I've got them tied with BYU as my 5th most disappointing team. And BYU is offensively just non-existent, man. They opened the year and they played, I believe, Portland State. Beat them to the tune of 20-6. I don't know how you only scored 20 points on Portland State. They've already played 3 games. They followed that boring, snoozing win at home to a 27-0 loss to LSU. Now, I know it was LSU, but you get shut out by LSU, 27-0, second game of the year. And then they lose again to their rival, Utah, 19-13. So BYU opens the year 1-2. They had pretty high expectations going in. They've already got 2 losses. They have scored a total of 33 points in 10 games, good for 11 points a game. So I believe they will be a team that if you're going to bet a total on, you might want to take a good hard look at the under. Their offense is really struggling. So my top 5 most disappointing teams, I've got number 1, Texas A&M, number 2, Arkansas, number 3, Temple, number 4, Missouri, and then I've got a tie for 5th between UNC and BYU. Call into the show, 452-3094. Tell me what you think about that.
And just to answer what you were talking about that list, which is a great list.
Yeah.
Baylor.
Ooh, yeah.
Which I know some people like.
I've got them on this other page, and I've got my notes here. I've got them written down.
I was about to say.
I've got them written down. And that's actually why I grabbed, my pad. I've got to look and see. They're a really big underdog this week to someone. I can't remember off the top of my head who it is. I look at so many games, and I break so many games down, I can't remember them all off the top of my head. So I'm kind of referencing here, who it is real quick. Let's see here. There's some good games this weekend, but it looks like all of the marquee matchups this weekend, and maybe it's because I'm a homer, but it looks like they're all in the SEC. I mean, you got Clemson and Louisville, which should be a good game. Here it is right here. Duke at home is a 14-point favorite over Baylor. I mean, we're talking about a team that was in the BCS discussion, year in, year out, just a couple years ago when, forget the head, Art Briles was the head coach. And, granted, they had some really good athletes. They had good quarterbacks. They didn't have much of a defense. They were outscoring their opponents. But, Duke, man, a 14-point favorite this weekend over Baylor.
It harkens back to what you were talking about a little while ago. Well, really, I think last week or the week before. We were talking about them losing to Liberty.
Yeah.
Start the year.
Yeah.
Then you come back and lose to UTSA, which
University of Texas San Antonio.
I almost thought it was a made-up school, and then I'm like, oh, okay, they're San Antonio. So
I know, man.
that is,
it's crazy. And I've got, I don't want to say too much because, of course, I provide a handicapping service for those of you that do not know. www.acesports324.myfreesites.net. We're updating the site. We're tweaking it. I just started about a month ago. I started it back up. I had a website up. It lay dormant for a little while from when I was handicapping back in 2008 through 2012. The site has been shut down for whatever reason. I guess because there was no activity from the admin. I was the admin, of course. So I had to start a new site. We're updating it as we go. But you can go there, get some more information. My phone number's on there. My website's on there. My results for the 2017 season so far, the 3 weeks of football that we've had, all the wins and all the losses are in there. The point spread covers, the point spread losses, how many units we're up. You can find all that information archived and documented on my page, or you can call me 901-900-9315. That's my personal line. If you want more information and sports advising, I can definitely help you out. It's all about money management. It's all about managing your bankroll. We've got to figure out what you have as disposable. I don't want you betting half your mortgage on the games this coming up weekend, but we can definitely figure out what you're working with, figure out a way to manage your money, figure out a system. I have a system and formula for all of my plays. I break down just about every game that I find value in. I handicap each game before the lines drop in Vegas. I believe late Monday night is when they drop. I don't look till Tuesday morning. And it's crazy, man. It's Wednesday afternoon, and there's a ton of movement in some of these games. Sometimes that means that it's just public betting heavy. Sometimes it means there's sharp play on it. Sharp play is literally professional gamblers, guys that do it for a living. That they know their stuff. So to go over some games this weekend that I'm kind of interested in, like I said, most of the marquee matchups I believe are in the SEC. Maybe that's because we're in the middle of SEC country, and that's what interests me. But there's an interesting game, Kentucky and South Carolina. I believe that'll be a fun game to watch. Two teams that are kind of, on the brink of actually making some noise in the SEC East. I still think they're both a year away. But because you've got Florida and Georgia that I think still rank supreme, but they're two teams that are really, I believe Kentucky, if there's going to be a year that they can do it and kind of squeeze it, like get into that top three and get into the discussion, it's going to have to be this year. Whether or not that happens or not is to be determined. I've talked about South Carolina a couple times on the show now. I think they start out quick. They have started out quick. If they win this game, they finally go home. They started out on the road with back-to-back, or not on the road, but they played on a neutral site with a big win over an NC State team that's going to be decent this year, I believe. They'll probably finish in the middle of the pack in the ACC, and they'll probably have a win or two they'll probably have an upset or two this year. So they got a big win to open the year on a neutral site against NC State. Then they went on the road, beat Missouri by almost 3 touchdowns last week. They return home to Williams-Brice. They play Kentucky. They're listed. They opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. It's been bet up to 6.5. It's got 75% of the public is betting on South Carolina. I know I had the game handicapped a little different. It will probably not be a play for us this weekend. I had the game handicapped at South Carolina minus 3.5, so a 3-point differential. The way my system works, you can find out how it works if we speak and you become a client. But I have a system, and it's based on points, the differential, and the way I handicap the game, and the way I handicap the total, the against the spread and the total. The way I handicap it and what actually drops, I look at that differential, and then I determine how many units will be bet on that game after breaking the game down. So I look at what I have it handicapped as. I look at what Vegas has it. I look at movement, and then I look at several different things: depth charts, trends, coaching matchups, injury reports, weather. There's a lot of different things that factor in that I look at. Notre Dame goes on the road this weekend. They play Boston College. Traditionally, that is always a good game. Pretty surprising this one. Notre Dame's listed as a 13.5-point favorite. We'll get into some more lines. We're going to go to break real quick. When we get back, we'll talk some more college football and handicapping against the spread. Sports Hour with Ace. Yeah. It sounds good. That's what everybody's telling me. Everybody's telling me on the TuneIn app, on the Simple app, on Talkback Live Network. They say, man, it sounds great. But when they're in their car, and I think some of it has to do with the weather outside. It's been real overcast, real cloudy. Like my Wi-Fi doesn't work real good right now. But like I think that's what's causing it, because my buddy said he was listening in his truck the other day, in his work truck, and it wasn't picking up good. But when he listened to it on one of the apps, I think he said the TuneIn app is what he was using, he was like, man, it sounded great. Perfect. So he's just so all my Facebook Live people, man, download the TuneIn app, Simple app, or talkbacklivernetwork.org, correct? Right, Josh?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, those are the three apps that you can download and stream, and then you can hear the commercials, you can hear the callers, and stuff like that. Who all's in here? Who all do we have in here today? Let's see who we got. Hey, Mom, what's going on? I see you sending the likes and the loves. Hey, Amanda. I love you, Amanda. Danny Fugit, what's going on, brother? Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm happy for you, too, man. I see you doing good. Joseph Rawson, what's going on? Rachel Johnson, how are you? Lisa Marie Payne, what's going on? Matt Napier, what's going on? Matt Napier, my pal from another gal. What's going on, brother? It's good to see you in here all the time, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. Sarah Isabella, good to see you. Greg Lawrence, what's going on? Aaron Smith, what's going on? Mom, how are you? High Point Pizza, the new featured sponsor of my show. I'm glad to have them. The new Wednesday afternoon sponsor, High Point Pizza, 477 High Point Terrace. Go check it out. It's in between Summer Avenue and Highland Avenue. It runs parallel to Highland and Graham, actually, and then in between Summer and Walnut Grove. Really good. Used to work there. Go see Spencer Hayes or Sean Alfred. Really good. Jason Daniels, what's going on, man? Sin Lee, what's going on? Allah Harzan, Brandon Myers, Jimmy and Devin Bush. Dad is on his truck trying to listen this morning. Yeah, it doesn't pick up real good on the radio. You know, my Dad said he picked it all the way up in Michigan City, Mississippi the other day, which is good. But, you need to download one of the apps on your phone, and then you'll pick it up better on one of those apps and just stream it. It sounds perfect. That's the best way to do it, or just watch it on Facebook Live. If you can watch it on Facebook Live, watch it on Facebook Live. We're on a commercial break right now. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for putting that on there. So, talked a little bit about the Grizzlies today. Talked a little bit, if you're just joining, talked a little bit about some NCAA games coming up the week ahead. I did my top 5 most disappointing teams so far this year. I know it's still kind of early and anything can happen, but I did a top 5 list of the most disappointing teams, and whenever those, call into the show. If you're on here, call in, 452-3094. I'm going to take a look at some of this stuff real quick before we come back from commercial break. So you said it sounded really good?
Yeah. Sounded legit, man.
Good. Tomorrow, we're going to talk Tigers.
Cool.
I mean, for at least one half of the show. You know, big game coming up. It's my last day in here before next week. So I'm going to call a couple potential sponsors this afternoon when I get off from my other job. So everything's on the up and up, man. Is that the new release right there?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the schedule.
Oh, this is the upcoming schedule. Okay, I see. Man, Michigan's number 7. Wow. I like Pitt in that game. Not to win, but I like them to. I like them to cover. They were opened up as 14-point dogs. It's 17 now. That's hard, man, for a team to go on the road like that and win a game like that by 17. People don't understand how hard that is. To just get a road win in college football is difficult. To go in and beat somebody by 17 at home, that's crazy.
And especially, it's not like Pitt sucks either.
No. I mean, they play defense. I don't know. I haven't really gotten a chance to see a whole lot, but I know they always play good on defense.
Yeah. Oh, use that mic.
What's this one? Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrew Vanelli, Sports Hour with Ace. Today's show presented by High Point Pizza, 477 High Point Terrace. You go there, get dine-in, takeout, 477 High Point Terrace, parallel to Highland and Graham, and between Walnut Grove and Summer. They're open Tuesday and Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Also Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. They're open Sunday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then closed on Mondays. They are closed on Mondays. You can dine in or take out. Call 901-452-3339, 901-452-3339 in order to take out, or go visit them online, www.highpointpizza901.com. That's www.highpointpizza901.com. High Point Pizza just celebrated 10 years in business. Go enjoy one of the best muffalettas in the city, or a slice and a salad at lunch, or at dinner. Go and get one of the best handmade pizzas in Memphis, as well as an excellent selection of domestic, imported, and local bottled beer. High Point Pizza, 477 High Point Terrace. You can call them 452-3339 for takeout, or go and visit them and dine in at 477 High Point Terrace. That runs parallel between Highland and Graham and in between Walnut Grove and Summer. We talked about my top 5 list of the most disappointing teams early on in college football. 1 through 5, I've got number 1, most disappointing, Texas A&M. Number 2, Arkansas. 3, Temple. 4, Missouri. And then a tie for 5th between UNC and BYU. And then me and Josh talked a little bit about how disappointing Baylor has been this year. Baylor comes in as a 14-point underdog on the road this week at Duke, the dominating football program of the Duke Blue Devils. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like what Cutcliffe has done there.
Yeah.
It's really hard to build a program that really doesn't have too much football history. They're known as a basketball school. They're held at such a high academic standard.
Yeah.
So, it's really hard, to win there. And David Cutcliffe's had some good years. They've gone to a bowl a few times. But.
I almost feel like the peak of them was, if you remember the game, like Johnny Manziel's last game.
Yeah.
Was that great
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A?
How could I forget, man? That was an awesome game. That really was an awesome game. Offensive shootout. So we were talking a little bit before we went to break about some lines. I provide a handicapping service. You can go to www.acesports324. So that's ACEsports324.myfreesites.net. You can get some more information, or you can call me 901-900-9315. That's my personal line. Or email me, andrew@vanelli.net. That's ANDREW.VANELLI.net. For more information, we can talk about the upcoming games this weekend, negotiate. I have a season contract, or you can go week to week. I do have a money-back guarantee without producing a return on an initial investment at the end of the year. So let's talk about a few games. Also, you can call in if you want to talk about my top 5 list. If you want to talk a little bit, we talked a little bit about Grizzlies and Tony Allen heading to the New Orleans Pelicans. Now we're talking about some college football games coming up this week. I said some of the marquee matchups to me this weekend. They all look like they're in the SEC. You've got Clemson and Louisville, which looks interesting. Tennessee, Florida will be a big game. Florida's coming back after a layoff. I think they had Northern Colorado last week, but the game was canceled because of the Hurricane Irma disaster. Thinking of all prayers go out to all of the hurricane victims down in Texas, down in Florida, Puerto Rico, the Keys. Prayers go out to all the hurricane victims. We had an opportunity to watch football, talk sports, and I always want to keep what's really important at the top of our priority list, and prayers go out, definitely. God bless all the people that have had their lives turned upside down due to Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, and it looks like we've got another one, Jose, coming, if I saw that correctly. So prayers go out to all those victims. I had Anthony McClanahan on the show Friday, former Washington State standout, Dallas Cowboy, and two-time CFL winner, super or whatever they call it, championship, I guess, CFL championship. It's not a Super Bowl, but he won 2 rings there with, I believe, Doug Flutie was the quarterback at the Calgary Stampede. He called in. He's down there doing some philanthropic work, handing out waters, rescuing animals, helping, giving people a hand. And it just goes to show that there's a lot of professional athletes out there that really, that's why they're so successful, man. They understand it. They get it. It's all about, paying it forward and giving back. And he's doing a great job, man. I was glad to have him on the show. We have been talking back and forth and developing a relationship. It's pretty cool, to know a guy like that and see what he's doing. I would love to go down. Really, really interested in. Florida's at home. They're off a 2-week layover after the disappointing loss to Michigan. Florida's listed as a 4.5-point favorite. It's at 5 in some places. The total on that game is 49.5. Most of the money's coming in on Tennessee, though. So 65% of the public money is coming in on the UT Vols plus the 5. When you're talking SEC football, I love the points, man.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about Alabama.
Yeah, exactly.
Not too many opportunities you get Alabama plus the points, but it's always good to take the points. History, the games are usually tight. Florida hasn't done anything so far this year to make me believe that they can beat Tennessee by 7. Now, does that mean that they can? Absolutely not. I think Florida's going to definitely be pumped. It's in the swamp. They've had 2 weeks to prepare. They've got to get some quarterback play out of Felipe Franks. If that's who they're going to go with, unless they go with Zaire. You might want to take a look at Zaire. Now that they've experienced the loss, I think the Michigan loss, I'm looking at the screen, they're number 7 right now. That loss may not be too significant. Florida can bounce back. Will they? I don't know. They've got some really tough games on their schedule. I believe they play Florida State this year. They've got Georgia, of course, in the cocktail party. They've got Tennessee this weekend. We'll see. But I picked them to win the East. McElwain came in, won 2 years in a row. The SEC East 2 years in a row. And I picked them to three-peat. I believe that Georgia is really good at being their biggest enemy. Georgia's biggest enemy is definitely Georgia. So far this year, I look like I could be wrong. But we're only 2 weeks in because Georgia was very impressive last week. Their defense is absolutely unbelievable. Tennessee comes in, I believe, ranked 23, and then Florida is 24. So it's a top 25 matchup. That 23 next to Tennessee's name will not last very long. I'm not a believer in the Vols. And really what it is, Josh, it's not a lack of talent. I'm not a believer in Normandy. I don't think he is the type of quarterback that can go through an SEC season and win more than 3 or 4 games. And when I look at the schedule, man, it's just tough. They're partnered with Alabama. I don't remember what the other team they got out of the West is. I believe it's LSU. It's LSU or Auburn, I believe. And then they've got to play Georgia. They got to play Florida. They've just got a tough schedule, man. They did get a big win over Georgia Tech. They got lucky in that game. But a win's a win. They got the win at the end of the day.
Schedule, man. I mean, you see back to back to back to back.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. I mean, so you've got Florida this week on the road in the swamp. You come home and you play UMass, and then after UMass you play number 13 Georgia. Granted, it's at home. That's going to be tough. You're playing a South Carolina team that I believe will definitely be in the top 20 when that game approaches on October 14th. Then you play number 1 Alabama. Then you go on the you play on the road against number 1 Alabama. You go on the road to play Kentucky, who, that's not an easy place to go win. Then you play a Southern Miss team at home who's no slouch. It's not like they can take the week off. And then they go on the road at Missouri, which they'll win. I had that being Missouri's one win this year, but man, Missouri looks bad. I don't think they'll win a game in the SEC. I really don't. I don't think that they'll be able to stop anyone, and I just don't. Their offense is okay. They got a good quarterback, but I mean, Drew Lock will have to play some perfect games and literally throw like 6 touchdowns for them to win a game in the SEC, because the SEC is going to run roughshod on them. And then they end the year they got LSU and Vandy. I mean, not one of those games is a guarantee. Outside, they're going to beat Southern Miss in Knoxville. I'll give them that game. But they have the potential to lose. And they'll beat Vandy at home. Because Vandy will be beat up. They get Vandy at a good part of the season. Now, if you get Vandy early, in the first 6, it could be a game. It could be a bad loss. But Vandy, it always ends up getting beat up on the last half of the SEC every year. They just don't have the depth, man. They experience injuries. They don't have the depth. So they'll probably win those 2 games. But, I mean, scroll back down. You've got on the road at Florida this week. I really think Florida's going to bounce back. If they don't, could you imagine that if Tennessee wins that game, they'll be sitting at 3-0, probably close to around 16, 17, and Florida will be 0-2 and at the bottom of the SEC East. I won't look too smart, you know what I mean? Because I picked them to win the East. But then, so you've got them on the road. You come home, you beat UMass, and then you play Georgia, South Carolina, on the road at Alabama, on the road at Kentucky. Come home to play Southern Miss, and then you finish out at Missouri, which is a win, LSU and Vanderbilt. I don't know, man. I see them winning 3 of those games.
Yeah, that's a tough.
That's a
gauntlet, man.
That is a gauntlet, and you know what? They might win 4. I think I have them 6-6 and 2-6. 6-6 and 2-6, or 6-6 and 3-5. I'm gonna refer to my notes. Like I said, I did an SEC East preview show and I did an SEC West preview show before the season kicked off. And yes, I had Tennessee finishing 4th, 6-6 and 4-4. That's what I have them finishing. I've got my notes here. I had Florida number 1, Georgia number 2, Florida 9-3, 6-2, Georgia 8-4, 5-3, and I counted 2 of those Georgia losses to be Georgia shooting themselves in the foot. They haven't done it yet, but they still got 10 games left. South Carolina, the surprising number 3, 8-4, 5-3, but I have them going 5-1 or 6-0 to start the year. So we'll see what happens this week. They could start out 3-0 very easily, and then I have them absolutely crumbling, which we've talked about a few times. So South Carolina 3, Tennessee 4th. I've got South Carolina 8-4, 5-3, which would be very surprising to most people. I stepped out on a limb on that one. I love Bentley. I love Debo Samuel. Will Muschamp is a good defensive coach. I don't know about a head coach, but he knows how to coach a defense. He did the best he could to ruin the Florida program. They got McElwain just in time. And then I've got Tennessee 4, 6-6, 4-4, and then tied for 5th, or Kentucky, Vandy, and one of those orders 5 or 6, 6-6, 2-6 for Kentucky, Vandy 5-7, 2-6. The 5th spot will depend on who wins that game, Kentucky and Vandy. And then I've got Missouri, like I said, bringing in the rear at 7, and I've got them 5-7, 1-7. I'm thinking 4-8, 0-8, potentially 3-9. I really do. They look so bad. As far as the SEC West goes, what do I have here? SEC West. I pick, of course, Alabama is my number 1 team in the SEC West. Number 2, I've got Auburn. I'm trying to find it. Got it somewhere here. Let's see here. Yeah, I've got Alabama number 1, 12-0, 8-0. LSU in the surprising number 2 spot. Most people have got Auburn number 1 or number 2. I've got LSU number 2, and I think LSU gets Auburn at home in Death Valley. That's why I picked them. Number 2, so LSU 10-2, 6-2. Auburn 9-3, 6-2, with the tiebreaker going to LSU because LSU wins down in Baton Rouge. I think Auburn's other loss I have in the Iron Bowl. So I have them going 6-2, losing to Bama and LSU. Both, I don't know. I think they will get Bama at home, but they're not beating Bama. And I know anything can happen in that game, but they're just not beating Bama. Unless Jalen Hurts gets hurt. Knock on wood, because I hate to see anybody get hurt. Number 4, the surprising pick of all of the SEC, I've got Ole Miss. The Ole Miss Rebels, which is kind of the team that I root for. I root for the SEC in general. I want the SEC to win. We're in SEC country. When I'm debating with people about the Big 10, Pac-12, ACC, Big 12, I want to have full ammunition. So I want everyone to do good out of conference in the SEC, and then it's interesting to see what happens when they start playing each other. Number 5, I've got Arkansas, 7-5, 3-5. Man, I don't know about that. 6 Mississippi State, 6-6, 2-6, and then number 7 Texas A&M, 4-8, 1-7. So my Texas A&M and Missouri picks are looking pretty good to bring in the SEC West, number 7 in the SEC East. And then I've got Arkansas in my top 5 most disappointing after getting drummed at home by TCU, a team that, who knows, maybe TCU will turn out to be a really good team. I think I had them 8-4 this year, which isn't bad, but I mean, an SEC team shouldn't lose by 3 touchdowns at home to them. I mean, especially early in the year.
I really expected that to be a good game.
Yeah, I did, and it really was kind of a good game for 3 quarters. TCU did some things like I think they blocked a punt and recovered in the end zone. So I mean, some things happen, but hey, that's football, man. You got to be sound on special teams. You can make it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you just your point about Ole Miss. I'm curious because I know a lot of people picked them later in the West, but honestly, I agree with you because I don't really see what people. I know the Hugh Freeze thing. I get that.
Yeah.
But they still have a ton of talent.
They do, man. They have a ton of talent. I mean, call me crazy. Shea Patterson. I know he's a sophomore, and there are some good quarterbacks in the SEC this year. There really is. There's the potential to be some really good quarterbacks. When you talk about Drew Lock, he's on the wrong team in Missouri, but he's really good. Like I said, he's on the wrong team. The defense is going to lose their games, which is surprising because they got a defensive head coach in Barry Odom. But then you've got Bentley at South Carolina, who I'm really high on. He'll be an NFL player. You've got Jalen Hurts. You've got Felipe Franks, who's just a freshman, but he was one of the most highly touted kids coming out of high school. So Hurts in Alabama. You've got Jarrett Stidham down in Auburn that transferred from Baylor, transferred from JUCO, who started in Baylor. So, it's interesting. There's a lot of quarterbacks. And then there's a guy, senior in Kentucky, that returned. His name's slipping me right now, but he's really good. I can't think of the guy down in Mississippi State. But there's some good quarterbacks. My point is there's some good quarterbacks in the SEC. And I wish all of them, I want all of them to do well out of conference. And that, like for instance, Ole Miss plays, I believe they play Cal, right, this weekend?
Yes.
That is this weekend, right? They go on the road to play Cal. I'm really rooting for Ole Miss. I don't know, if you're an SEC fan, I don't know why you wouldn't root, even if you do hate them and it's a rivalry. For instance, Tennessee and Alabama, bad blood. Who wouldn't want, Tennessee to beat Georgia Tech? If I'm an Alabama fan, I want Tennessee to win that game. So then when we play them, it looks better. I don't want insignificant wins on my body of work. So the more out of conference wins you get, the better. I've got Ole Miss going on the road. They're 3-point favorites at Cal. I think they win that game. I think Shea Patterson is good. And a big thing, Josh, about talking about Ole Miss, they got a chip on their shoulder, man. The kids stuck around. They know they're not going to a bowl. They know they've got 12 games. So they know what's going to happen. There's no pressure on them. And when you take the pressure off, and then they play loose. Because I think one of Ole Miss's biggest problems, especially the year when Memphis beat them, man, they started feeling that pressure, man. They got up to, I think, number 6, number 5 or number 6. They started feeling a little pressure. They came on the road. They lost to Memphis. I think they kind of bounced back from it. But, I mean, they were under a lot of pressure, really, really high expectations, and they kind of folded. There's no pressure, and the talent's there. And I love Matt Luke and what he stands for. All that stuff came out. Hugh Freeze left. The guys showed up at 6 a.m. the next morning, and Matt Luke got their attention, and they got to work. And I respect that, man. I respect that, and I think Ole Miss they're really gonna rain on a team or two's parade. I just have a feeling because they definitely have the talent there. They've got some really big athletic receivers. I like their quarterback, and their defense has been good year in and year out.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm one of those guys. I'm really not an Ole Miss fan.
Mm-hmm.
No, not I hate
right.
Anything like that. I'm just not a fan. But
sure,
I do think that they got a good team. And
yeah.
What motivates you more than adversity?
No, absolutely.
The perfect thing. And then I saw one of Matt Luke's speeches.
Oh man.
For the first game, which I'm sure you probably saw.
I saw it, dude. I knew about Matt Luke prior to him being the interim head coach. I knew a little bit about him. Okay. But go ahead.
He is a heck of a motivator.
No nonsense,
and
man.
They seem galvanized behind him.
I believe he's a Navy guy. I think he is a military guy, a Navy guy.
That makes sense.
And he said in that press conference that they had the day after Hugh Freeze, was let go or resigned or whatever,
they held a team meeting 6 a.m. the next morning, and he said, "Look, it's time to get to work. I don't care how talented you are. The guy that plays hard is who's going to play the snaps. So I mean, if you don't play hard every play, you're coming out. And when you put kids out there that are playing their butt off, I mean, and every coach probably tries to get that out of their players. But the thing about Matt Luke, he got their attention. You could see it. You could see it in their eyes. You heard it in the players' voices that got interviewed in the press conferences the next day. Some of their leaders, some of the captains on that team. So I think Ole Miss is going to surprise a team or two, man. Like I said, I have them finishing in the middle of the pack, number 4, 7-5, 3-5. But don't be surprised if they kind of, if they don't pull an upset over somebody. Maybe 1 or 2 upsets and kind of spoil, an opportunity for a team to either win the West or an opportunity for a team to win the East. Whoever, I don't remember who they get out of the East this year. But yeah, so I'm looking at Lindy's magazine right here. Lindy's has Ole Miss pick 7, 5-7, 1-7. Man, Ole Miss is going to win more than one SEC game this year. You know what I mean? Come on, man. And then I think Street and Smith had them 6 or 7, and then Athlon had them 6 or 7. So that's 3 publications. If I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to that. I could be wrong. I've got a Lindy's right here, and that's kind of what I compare my stuff to. I agree with Lindy's the most. No, I don't agree. I went against the grain on some of the picks. For instance, South Carolina. I believe they have South Carolina way down. They have South Carolina. No, they didn't. They had South Carolina 4th. I've got them 3rd.
And even looking at their schedule, because I had no clue about their schedule at all. I'm looking right here.
South Carolina?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, yeah. It's soft.
This is very doable.
It's 7 wins. It's a 7-win schedule, man.
Very doable.
And I've been saying this to people all off season since the Hugh Freeze thing went on. I still said they're going to win 7 games. They might win 8.
I'll say this. I think they upset Auburn.
That's one.
Yeah.
And I've got Auburn picked 3rd. Because that's tough. Auburn's got a tough schedule. That's why I have them 3rd. Do they have the talent to finish 2nd? Do they have the talent to maybe pull the upset in the Iron Bowl? Maybe. They do have the talent. It's not going to happen, though.
Not with that quarterback.
It's not going to happen, man. Nick Saban, he knows how to coach against Malzahn. They scored 6 points on the road at Clemson. Clemson shut them down. You better believe Alabama's going to shut them down.
Yeah.
I know it's early in the year. I know a lot of things can change. Supposedly, I heard something yesterday. Gus Malzahn and the offensive coordinator are changing some things up. I don't really know the details on that story. But, it's going to be interesting to see, man. I love SEC football. Anyone that's been tuning into my show for the last, I guess a couple weeks now, you can definitely tell that I'm a SEC football fan. I think it's the best football in the country. And I mean that in the most non-biased way possible. Real quick, how much time do we got, Josh?
About a little less than a minute.
Less than a minute. I was going to say call in. Be sure to call in tomorrow. We're going to talk a little Memphis Tigers. The phone number, 452-3094. I'll be welcome to take your calls. I want to end the show. I'm very happy about my new sponsor for the show, my featured sponsor, High Point Pizza. Go see Spencer Hayes and Sean Alford, the GM there. They're at 477 High Point Terrace, or you can call them and order some takeout. 452-3339. High Point Pizza. It's right there on High Point Terrace. In between, it runs parallel to Highland and Graham. Excited about their sponsorship. Go Tigers, go. Sports Hour with Ace. This ends Thursday's show. Andrew Vanelli signing out. I will see you guys tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Peace. That sounded way better, man. That sounded way better on that mic.
Yes.
I like this mic, but that sounded much better.
Okay. Yeah, I was noticing.
That was the first time that I've come in here, and it didn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
When I was talking into the mic, it didn't sound. So I was messing with the volume with the dials over here, and it just didn't.
I think it was
something seemed off. So, what's going on, everybody? Thanks everyone for watching. Let's see who we got. Amanda, I love you. I'll see you tonight. Brandon Myers, what's going on? Alaharzan, Jason Daniels, Richard Miller, Sean Knight. Thanks everybody for watching, guys. I really appreciate all the support. Everybody in Memphis, or even if you're not in Memphis, call into the show sometime. Let's debate. Tomorrow we'll be talking a little bit of Memphis Tigers and just kind of winging it a little bit. So you guys have a good day, good Thursday, and God bless.